Hey everyone, I'm Luke. Since we're short on time, I'm not going to wait for the electronic brains here, and just going to start talking about our brains. And my talk is about a particular form of brain exercise that I've been practicing and researching over 17 years. And to start, I want to bring us back several decades because many of us forget that physical exercise was at some point fairly controversial. It was thought of as something lower class. People had to do factory labor or something like that. If you were wealthy enough, you could afford a sedentary lifestyle, and you could drive to your great new house in the suburbs in a car, and you wouldn't have to walk or take public transit, and everything. Everything socially and culturally and even medically was supporting the sedentary lifestyle. And that was not too long ago. It was not until the fitness revolution of the 70s and 80s, actually just of the 80s, that it became scientifically proven that you needed exercise, and finally culturally accepted and encouraged that we're all supposed to exercise. Now, even given that, we still don't do it enough. It's clear enough from the science. It's clear from a doctor. We're even getting insurance deductions for it, and we can look hot. But how many of you didn't have exercise today? Okay, we got about 20%. This is something that's like really well proven now, and we're still not doing it. So stand over here. Is that going to get you better light? Okay, great. So that was that's the history. Now, what if there's a form of exercise that I'm going to introduce, which is, it's just barely gotten research in the science, is not accepted in the mainstream medical world, and is certainly not going to make you cool and buff or anything. Well, maybe we should just leave that for the future and let people figure it out. But what if this form of exercise is regarding what could be exercising your most important organ? What if we're talking about exercising your brain? That's something that piqued my interest, that there could be a way of improving your brain, because our brains are very important to us, and we think here that at BIL, perhaps we're an elite group that's exercising our brains all the time. We had all these wonderful talks today, and we had all these great conversations, and of course, so we're getting lots and lots of brain exercise. And yet, by the standards of what it's doing medically to our brains, it's not. We're doing a lot of the same things we're doing day in and out, day in and day out. And although it's not perfectly proven yet, I would submit that repeating the same action over and over again is not actually exercise. So in the physical realm, if you're, say, just working your golf swing, this isn't going to improve your overall health. And in the mental realm, if you're doing the sorts of things you're already used to doing and just refining them, improving them, you're not actually improving overall brain health. You have to do something different, something a little bit weird and uncomfortable, which is what exercise often is. And the form of exercise that has been most recently studied, and it's actually been shown over the last 10 years to improve connectivity in the brain and improve function in the brain, is something known as meditation. It's only recently that we've had the ability to measure this at all. The instruments that we need, fMRI, diffusion tensor imaging, MRI, these are modalities only had within the last decade. So it's no wonder they haven't really been discovered and become part of medical science. In fact, the differences that were measured in these studies are quite subtle. Someone with 10,000 hours of meditation training might only have a 0.5% difference in the activation of one part of their brain compared to a person who doesn't have that meditation training. So they're quite subtle, but they're also statistically significant. And what is what has led me to pursue this is my own personal experiments as opposed to the scientific experiments. So when years ago in 2008, I was leading a pretty high stress lifestyle. Like outwardly, everything was quite successful. I had the SpaceX, had the first fully privately built rocket launch into orbit. I got this, really fun house with my partner, Ken Howery at Founders Fund. We were throwing parties every weekend. We had enough parties. The limit was, the neighbors and the police. So we were outwardly having lots of fun, lots of great success. But I found myself in more depression than I had ever experienced in my life, which is strange. And I've been depressed before at times, but this is strange because the outward was so different from the inner. And that led me to do a bit of research and decide that I needed to take up some forms of exercise. And I took up physical exercise very regularly at that time, and also took up brain exercise, which is, what science has shown us that meditation is the best form of brain exercise. And so I kind of did this out of a mode of desperation. I was like really, really, really depressed. But the benefits started to accumulate over that next year as I did the practices very regularly. I didn't experience work stress in the same way as I did. I became more aligned with my goals. And this is something I won't talk a lot about in this group, but that the idea that this type of brain training actually makes you more rational could be quite interesting. I was supposedly, and I would tell people, I would go to conferences like BIL and the Singularity Summit, that I was interested in solving these huge technologies that were important for the future of the human race. But I was actually spending most of my time investing in internet startups and partying. So my money wasn't where my mouth was, and my time wasn't there. And my time over the next 2 years began to realign. I spent more time with SpaceX, with Halcyon Molecular, with artificial intelligence companies. So I spent time and money on the things that I appreciated that were actually in line with my goal structure. This all happened very naturally without me having to sit down and kind of list them. I didn't say, well, geez, I really want to, stop drinking every weekend and, instead hang out and discuss the singularity. It just kind of happened. I just noticed that the things that made me feel good were those things. And so that was my experience over the last couple of years. And so I did more. And I went on meditation retreats and spent, not 10,000 hours, but I've been, in 30 days in complete silence in the last year and a half. And the benefits have been great for me. Although they're not, this is the trick with this, that they're not as measurable. I've been invited to be in one of these studies, but I haven't actually had my brain measured. There's no external validation, unfortunately, that I can give you, like if I had six-pack abs or something from physical exercise. In fact, the only thing that has changed is that, I met a great partner at teaching a meditation retreat at Ephemeral Isle. Minda Myers was in the audience today. There is no other evidence that this does anything. So that's the scientific truth. So why would I want to pursue? This is just one of the studies. I can go more into detail of the science. Brain connectivity is one of the gold standards for actually, are you increasing the capacity of your brain? Are the parts actually hooked up to each other? So in this particular study, which was forwarded to me through one of my AI companies, actually, so it's interesting, didn't come from biology. What they found is that in the aging brain, the connectivity decreases, and in a brain that is meditating, connectivity does not decrease as fast. And this is the case in every single of the 11 brain regions they studied. So for those of you interested in life extension, and for those of you interested in life extension of your most important organ, which is not your six-pack abs, but maybe in a different location, this is a way to keep your brain. This is a way to keep your brain young, and nothing has been shown to be as consistent for it. So that might be enough, but it's still not totally proven. I don't have personal examples, but really for me, it comes down to my goals in my life. I use my brain for everything that I do. It is my most important organ, and collectively together, we're trying to solve some of the most important problems in the world. So shouldn't we give ourselves every possible ounce of possibility in every ounce of capability we can in, to solve those problems? And shouldn't we maintain that capability as long as we can? Before the rejuvenating treatments are developed, shouldn't we do the exercises that have been discovered by science to be as beneficial as possible, even though they haven't made it all the way through to mainstream medicine and all the way through to mainstream culture? That process is going to take another 10 years for the medicine and another 10 years for the culture. 20 years from now, that might be after the singularity. We can't wait that long. So because of that, I've personally funded research in different types of meditation and personally funded meditation teachers and experiments in how we could more effectively develop the human brain. And if there were more people interested in working on this, I'm just looking at time, then we could move more quickly. And my partner Minda Myers, when she was at Singularity Institute, worked on using neurofeedback mechanisms to improve improve the function of the brain in the same way as we have with meditation. But those results were so far inconclusive. So we need a lot more work there. So that's the reason why I've made this a huge focus of my life and spending some time and money on it as far as research as well. But as this being the last talk of the day, what I'd like to spend a bit of time doing is to show you one of the practices that I have found in my research, which is a group form of meditation that is very easily doable by a beginner. It doesn't require you to go into a cave or eating vegetarian food. And it doesn't require you to have razor-sharp concentration in the beginning. It can actually bring you into a deep state of awareness in just a couple of minutes. So for that, I'd like to introduce Minda Myers, formerly. I see she has more fans than I do. Thanks, Minda. Thanks, Simone. And we're going to demonstrate a form of social meditation. So this was invented by a teacher named Kenneth Folk over Skype with his students. Now, what kind of meditation technique works over Skype? Well, he was in Burma. He went with one of these meditation masters for many decades, and finally he was to the point of teaching students. And so the students, I'm going to stand up here. We're sitting down on Skype, and they were just sitting there. Minda, meditate. I can't tell what's going on in her head. So it was frustrating to him, and he began to ask them, so what are you experiencing right now in your body and your mind?
Tension, nervousness, seeing, touching, hearing.
And that made it a lot easier to teach students over Skype. In fact, he got people through what are traditionally, I can't read with these glasses, they're a forged prescription. What is the number on there? We're fine. This can actually be taught in 3 minutes. It can even be taught in a bar while drinking. It's the most durable form that I have found. So very simply what you do, and I encourage you to share this and to join us afterwards in the back for a brief class if you're interested, is assign one word to a body sensation or a mind state. So we're going to do the intermediate version where we're going to talk about particular body sensations and particular mind states or emotions. And if we're thinking, we'll just say the word thinking rather than delve into it. And we've got 2 minutes, so we're going to do it for 1 minute and then talk about that a little bit. Must move closer too, girl. No, we got Here you go. That screws up my moving closer to girl. Seeing.
Seeing.
Touching.
Hearing.
Release.
Release.
Releasing.
Metta.
Nervousness.
Tasting.
Seeing.
Seeing.
Anticipating.
Hearing.
Contraction.
Warmth.
Coolness.
Tasting.
Seeing.
Seeing.
Thinking.
Brightness.
Seeing.
Release.
Release.
Seeing.
Seeing.
Smelling.
Coolness.
Seeing.
Thinking.
Touching.
Seeing.
Seeing.
Coolness.
Warmth.
Okay. How do you feel?
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's your 1 minute meditation for today. So since we have 1 minute, I was going to allow people to ask questions and then join us in the back for later. Right over there.
Feeling, and then she was telling you like what was going on in her head, or was it based on each other's responses?
There's a little bit of both. I'm free. It's not quite free associating. It's noticing the state of my body and describing it in one word.
So you're not responding to what she's saying.
Except otherwise as is natural.
Okay.
Because we're human.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, there's a social aspect to it. So if he says release, often, oh wow, I'll notice a release in my body, and I just note that. And we just kind of keep going back and forth. But we're mostly just noting the 5 senses, plus thinking, plus if I'm feeling something else, like maybe I'm feeling tension, or maybe I'm feeling warmth or another sensation, just noticing body sensations.
And you can't mess this up. If you get lost in a thought loop, the other person is going to say a word, shit, now it's my turn. Excuse my French. In a traditional meditation, you can be lost in thoughts for 10 minutes. Go ahead.
So you're just reflecting how your body's feeling?
You're just reflecting, and you're saying it out loud.
And the initiator, when you say that, is it your body, or you trying to get a reaction from the other person?
Not at all. You're completely internal, except to the extent that, again, it's natural. If a person's right there, it's natural for you to reflect a little bit. Or if you're doing it over Skype, as this was originally created, you reflect a little bit less. It's a bit more internal.
But the important part is just even noticing. Sometimes you notice that you're picking up on. If he's saying like touching, oh, suddenly I notice, wow, I notice that I'm feeling too. So it's developing insight.
So the point is you're focusing on your sensory organ, which part is feeling the environment around you?
So usually touching or feeling just means like the sensation, oh, I'm noticing the chair underneath me, or I'm noticing something, I just reached for the chair and I felt that kind of the coldness from the seat. So just like touching is just the physical sense of touch.
So here's the simple goal. A goal of this, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to say there's something in your brain that didn't identify the paper here, but it was discovered by a friend of mine who was in a Yale study, Judd Brewer. There's something called the default mode network. That is essentially your mind's chatterbox. It's what we're ruminating, thinking, anxiety, planning, thinking. This is what's going on with your brain the whole day, and what most forms of meditation attempt to do is to still this and to bring the attention into the body and to make you aware. By having another person there to kind of reflect just a little bit. And even if the most of the reflection is simply to note that it's my turn, that's actually the main thing that's happening, just the turn-based nature of it. It gives you like a human biofeedback device that allows you to focus internally much more easily than you would if you were just sitting in a cave, which is the 2,000-year-old method.
And I spent several months just kind of sitting in silence and trying that kind of meditation. And although I did get positive effects from it, I didn't move along quite as quickly in my progress, because it's easy to just kind of sit there for 60 minutes and space out, and maybe I'm concentrated for 5 minutes. But by having someone else to check in with, whether that's a partner, you can also practice this as a group. By having that kind of social pressure on you, that just provides kind of a feedback mechanism and really helps people to move along a lot faster in the progress of meditation.
My perception of meditation is that you sort of force your brain not to wander somewhere else by focusing on thinking or feeling at one point. And by having someone else initiating where you focus on it, that make it faster.
So When I first started meditating, I thought that meditation was the same thing. Oh, if I can get really, really concentrated, then I'm meditating correctly. What I came to find over time is that's something called concentration practice, and there's a lot of benefits that I got from concentration practice, being able to stay focused for periods of time. But meditation
helps you with your
can
coding.
be. Sorry.
Helps you with your coding.
Yes, helps you with coding, which is something I spent some time doing. So that's one form of progress, but another form of progress is something called insight progress, which I learned more about. So what this meditation that Luke is teaching today, it's a form of insight practice. So
it's cheating.
Instead of having to stay concentrated and like be really, really tight, I learned that, wow, my meditation was really too tight, and what I needed to do is relax a little bit more. What I needed to be able to do is kind of let all sensations and everything going on around me kind of pass through me, but also to let that go. And in being able to do that, I started to notice more things. Like we were talking about the social interaction that we were having, noticing if he's touching, saying touching or feeling or hearing or something like that, I'm more likely to pick up on it. But that kind of development of insight is really what we're trying to get at with meditation, is just being able to look deeper and deeper into our thoughts and the structure of the mind, but not just in thinking, but in how our minds actually work and function.
Yeah, what I'm actually more excited about, and this is a little, this is getting more speculative, is I think that your brain is not just increasing in its connectivity. I think you're actually creating self-modifying code. I think if you can create awareness of what's going on internally, you start changing things around. Both of us, I think, have noticed that in our practice over the last couple of years. Things that we thought are like really kind of hard, and like, you had to work at them or change some kind of habit you were trying to change, they would just automatically change by themselves. So that's another. I'm gonna go back there.
While you were going through the exercise, I was trying to follow along by just listening to those sensations that you were mentioning within my own awareness, and I did find it actually intensely relaxing. I really liked it. So thank you for that. And the other thing is, for one of the states that you mentioned, you said meta, and I was wondering what was going on with you when you said that.
Yeah, that just kind of came out naturally as a term to say. So meta is kind of, it's a word that's used to describe almost like a feeling of compassion. But it's just kind of like a meditation lingo. And like I said, it just kind of came up for me to say, but it may not have been the greatest word to use to describe in front of an audience.
I have a question. In a lot of the research, it seems to be a diversion from meditation to speak of mindfulness. And within that practice, I was really excited to see it because you were becoming very mindful of those sensations within your body. How do you distinguish the difference between meditation and mindfulness, as a lot of different techniques are being developed currently to be measured?
Oh, that's kind of a lightning rod word in the meditation community, because I think that it was the first attempt to make meditation popular, is to create something where they removed kind of any non. They almost tried to make it sort of secular, removed a lot of the content that seemed religiously based. However, much of the content that seems religiously based, like metta, for instance, where you're trying to cultivate love for all living beings, that's kind of nice and useful, actually, to have love for all living beings. So that's my view of mindfulness, is they removed a lot of the things that were very useful in the practice in order to make it fundable by health insurance plans. So we're trying to create something that's a bit more hardcore, that has some of the original benefit, but is also secular and very easy to adopt.
That's just a book for your previous talk. It's for you to read.
Oh, thanks.
No, I just wanted to say that, it's confusing. Being someone who does this for a living is confusing me a little bit, the way that you're talking about it, because the way that this works and what you're doing, which is correct and wonderful, is you're getting in touch with your body. You're doing something which I call an emotional grounding exercise. You're emotionally grounding into your body, and that's then fixing the thoughts in your brain and causing your brain to work properly. So that's the way that I describe it and the way that I understand it, is that you're essentially fixing your brain through your body. But it seems to me like you're talking about this as somehow you're fixing your brain with your brain, but then you were talking about going into your body. So I'm just wondering if you could clarify.
I totally agree with you. I'm just doing this for PR because I know my audience here.
Cool. So just to clarify, that is basically what you're saying, is that you're going into your body, you're getting in touch with your body and with your feelings and how it feels, and that's emotionally grounding you, and then that's what's then causing the silence of the chatter in your brain and fixing whatever.
Yeah, just talking about your body in this audience is probably a little bit of woo-woo, so especially knowing the lack of exercise.
Okay, it's
I didn't exercise either, by the way, as you know. I agree with you. That's actually a little bit more correct.
Can you give a quick overview of the different types of meditation that you've tried and which ones were most helpful, like distinguishing between like the single pointed concentration and the other kinds?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
And Minda's done a few other ones too. So I've done transcendental meditation for 15 years, and that is a mantra meditation where you repeat a word in your voice or in your mind. This is the one that people typically like om, 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 something like that. And it is a type of concentration practice, and it's a very easy one. So that's what I did for a while, but I wasn't doing it super often. I would say it's sort of like, oh yeah, I exercise, kind of like for a few minutes here and there whenever I feel like it. So that effects were not as strong.
So I would say that's probably would fall under the category of a concentration meditation.
Yes.
So there's two broad categories that I would use for meditation. One is concentration meditation, and the other path is insight meditation. And it can often be helpful to increase your concentration meditation as long as you're not getting too tight with your meditation, which is something that I did and I've been trying to correct for a while now. So there's concentration meditation, and there's insight meditation. What we were doing here was more on the order of insight meditation, so looking into the quality of your experience. But a meditation really can be anything that cultivates an altered state of mind or altered state of consciousness, which again, I did some research on EEG neurofeedback, which you can show just through different types of regions of the brain being activated or different spectrums of brain activity. So just kind of cultivating different states of mind. So as Luke said, some concentration practices might be focusing on a mantra, on a visualization. What I did was just a lot of like direct sensory experience and just trying to focus on my senses. It can be focusing on different, it can also just be like a more traditional meditation of just like watching your breathing or noting thoughts, whereas in insight meditation, well, I guess
this
noticing.
Is the one you saw, noting, this is called noting, when you note body sensations and thoughts. This is a form of insight meditation because you are letting your attention roam freely rather than making it one-pointed at a single thing.
Right, so traditionally this might be focusing, concentration meditation, you might think of it as maybe like focusing on a single image or a candle flame or a picture, whereas the insight meditation is more focusing on body sensations, quality of breath, different sensations in the body.
One more question?
Hi. So I was wondering if you find that there's... Okay. Is there an optimal amount of time to do this, or is there a point at which you start to get diminishing returns?
Yeah, there is a magic amount of time, which I'm afraid to prescribe anything. So sort of almost like don't do this at home. But then again, how else are you going to do it? Email me or something. But when I was practicing on my own, I never went above 20 minutes. And there's a reason for that. That's because 20 minutes is the amount of time it takes for you to pretty much settle into your body and actually start getting benefits. So the traditional amount of time in a meditation retreat, when you're able to get into that state over longer period, is 45 minutes at a time. And that is when significant transformations begin to happen in your brain. I bet you these guys in these studies were all doing 45-minute meditation periods. These are not 20 minutes. So that's the chunk. And if you think about it in exercises, if you went in and like did a 15-minute work, it's kind of enough time to get into the gym and just get warmed up. You didn't really raise your heart rate. You didn't actually, unless you are really well trained and you can do that, raise it very quickly and then bring it down and maybe do interval training, you could do that. But typically you need to do 45 minutes. Now, if you do that, do it in the course of a community or with the guidance of a teacher, because it is brain training or maybe even brain surgery. And it does change your experience of life, and there can be some dramatic changes if you do it correctly. Not all of them are always good.
So there's also kind of the progress of insight as well. So you're asking about diminishing returns and what kind of happens over time. So what Luke is suggesting is 20 to 45 minutes, which I think that you'd notice a lot of benefits, but in terms of the progress of insight, it's questionable how far you'd make it. And for that kind of progress, it's really good to have a teacher to check in with, because what that progress looks like is sometimes you're doing feels like you're doing really, really well, and then sometimes it feels like you're doing horribly and you're doing everything wrong. I remember being on the Cooper retreat over Christmas, and there was a girl who just had a really, she'd been doing a lot of meditation, had an opening, it felt really, really good, and then afterwards, her meditation didn't feel as good anymore. And she was pretty much in tears, like, I sat there for 40 minutes and this felt, it didn't feel good anymore. It felt terrible. And the teacher said, good. Because you were able to stay with that uncomfortable sensation for that long. That is the real development. And so in terms of returns, there's a very long path. Luke's teacher, Kenneth Folk, he's been meditating for 30 years. He has an 8-stage model, which is more complicated than we want to get into here, but there's a very long path and many different benefits you accrue along the way, and there's a lot of changes that'll happen during that time. So I would say that the progress is cyclical. Sometimes, it feels like you're getting really far, and then other times it doesn't, and there's an entire cycle to it. We could definitely talk more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It sounds like it's time, and you look like you all want to start the after party. So thank you for joining us for brain exercise.